people.
It's not ghosts, but it's not ghosts. Welcome to Books and Brunch with Noelle
and Amber.
And this is our first time doing a video recording, so bear with us. We're figuring it out, and we're glad that you want to be with us as we do this.
Do we want to tell them why we're doing it this way?
The reason why is that I moved 14 hours east of where we were in New Mexico to just south of Starkville, Mississippi. It's super appropriate that the book that we are first podcasting from my cabin in the Pines is The House in the Pines by Ana Reyes.
Yes. I didn't even think about that, but
I thought about it a lot. I thought about clever ways to present it, but this is how it came out. So
it was so clever. It was so clever.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this was her debut novel. Came out this year. It's a thriller, and you kind of had some history behind that. Should we give synopsis first?
No, let's talk a little bit about her and the book, because it's super interesting to kind of, for me, reading the book and then learning about her. I think I had a deeper appreciation for the book, and just obviously we both are writers. We really appreciate what writers go through, but the process of writing this book was crazy. So Ana Reyes, got her master's, and the original version of The House in the Pines was her master's thesis. When she got in contact with an editor and gave them her master's thesis as a completed work, her editor said to her, this reads like a thriller, but it's missing some of the components that are staples of the thriller genre. So let's rework it. And it was a 7-year process from the beginning of her master's thesis to the completed book that we just read, which is what a labor of love. 7 years.
Yes.
And she said that there's so many components of this book that would have never been a part of it had it not been for that editor. And it made me realize, I always talk about Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot. So T.S. Eliot, the poet. Ezra Pound was also a poet, and he was a good poet, but he was a great editor. He took T.S. Eliot's poetry and went from, wow, that's a great poem, to, oh my gosh, this poem tore me apart and changed the way that I view the world. So a good editor, we kind of forget about editors, but the role that they play in that finished product is huge.
Yeah, and it gives me hope that whenever you write something and get it to an editor, it doesn't have to be perfect and the end result. It's they can kind of see where you're going, what you're trying to do, and then work with you. So that's hopeful to some of us who try to write.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's changed a lot, right? Because back in the day, there was this romantic idea of you write out your manuscript, you type it out on a typewriter, and then you send it into an editor, and they're like, we love it, we're sending back some revisions, and then you revise it, and then it's a book. And it's now it's hi, we want to buy the series that you haven't written yet, and we need 4 chapters by next week if you want this check. And it's kind of because we're serial consumers now.
It's that whole binge mentality that Netflix and all those have done to us. But she is working on another book now, and she said she's only told, I think her husband, her editor, a couple of people, the premise, and so she wouldn't say what it was, but it was thriller. Because this was her debut novel, and I was watching her on this interview, and they were saying how your second book is harder because with your first book you have kind of unlimited time because no one's waiting for it, no one's expecting it, and then your second book, if you have sold, then they're come on, where are the pages?
What's cool about Ana Reyes is I listened to a couple different interviews with her. There's so much of her in this book. So she's biracial. She is part Guatemalan, and that is the main character, Maya's racial identity. She herself went through Klonopin withdrawal after having been prescribed it, and then had a doctor who wasn't really helping her get to the root of her sleep issues, but was just prescribing it without ever saying like, hey, by the way, this is highly addictive. It's really hard to come off of. When she went to grad school and transferred to a different doctor, that doctor was like, yeah, no, you shouldn't take this anymore. And she just had to go clean turkey off of Klonopin, which is terrifying. And so
yeah, which they talk about in this book. Yeah.
So what I love that a lot of other, and I don't want to copy what any other literary book club podcasts have talked about, but I do want to highlight something that's one of my favorite things in a novel is having a semi unreliable narrator, where you've got a narrator who right out the gate is telling you, I have a drinking problem, I'm going through withdrawal, I'm dealing with addiction, and also people have thought I was crazy and made me go I was like hospitalized for it. And then right off the bat, you're like, I'm in. Whatever you say, is it real? Is it not real? I don't know. And I love that. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and she just totally doubts herself, and I didn't find her unreliable. Like, I saw that she was skeptical of herself and what she believed, but I didn't ever wonder if she was really seeing what she thought she was seeing. Like, I believed it the whole time.
Okay, there were a couple moments when we get into spoilers where I was like, is this really happening? Or even like one of her memories where she has like lost time in like these chunks of her memories that she can't access. And then when she's slowly remembering them, you're like, can we remember those lost time memories fully? Are they like colored by things we know now? Things, all that whole thing came up.
Yeah. So do you want to get into just like brief synopsis of the book?
Yeah, you take it away.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's House in the Pines, and she said that she kind of always had this image of this house in the pines and kind of based it around that. So it's following a girl, and this isn't really a spoiler because it happens immediately. She Maya, the main character, she sees a video online that's not totally viral, but it's like 30,000 views, which I would consider viral, but I guess nowadays that's not. But so she sees this video, and it's her ex-boyfriend. He's in a diner with another girl, and she's like mid-20s, the main character. She's finished college and all that, and he's sitting there with this girl in this diner, and the girl just like kills over, and it's not obvious why he was not touching her, like nothing happens. And so then it brings up where this situation has happened before with this guy. So she's through the book trying to figure out if he did it, how he did it, what's going on, if he's going to be coming after her.
Well, she, despite what everyone else thinks, she's absolutely convinced that he did it. She just can't explain how. Because she witnessed, and we've learned this right at the beginning, she witnessed her best friend die right in front of her
in high school.
Presence. Right, in high school. 7 years prior to this viral video.
Right, and she, after that happened, she left and went to college, didn't talk to him anymore.
Didn't deal with that trauma professionally at all.
No, and so that's how she gets on Klonopin, because she's dealing with that, and then gets addicted to that. So through the book, she's going through withdrawals from that. She's in a relationship, so she's dealing. There's aspects of that relationship. The ex, Frank, which it was funny because the author said she chose the name Frank because it had this sinister vibe to it. And it is I feel bad for anyone named Frank, but it is kind of like a especially because it's set in the 90s, and so I always think of Frank as like a older man, and so it's funny this guy in his 20s in the 90s is named Frank. But so it's dealing with him, Klonopin withdrawal, her relationship with her mother, her relationship with her current boyfriend, and it goes back and forth in time between current to in high school, like it goes back and forth, and that was
Right.
my only thing that I felt, because I don't read thriller a lot, but I thought if she had kept it chronological, it would have been even more of a thriller. Like if
Yeah.
she hadn't went from future to back, because when they do that with a thriller, it's like, you know, everything how it turns out, you know, because they're
Right.
going back in time. So if,
Right.
if she had started with what happened with the friend and then was moving forward, you would always be like, what happened and where is he and what's going on? But
Right.
that was my only like I guess complaint, you could say.
Yeah. Well, and it's
was
like
I like the chronological.
I think like your Michael Crichtons and your who is the guy that James Patterson. There's those guys that write like your classic thrillers, and they tend to be a little bit more chronological. But I was thinking when you said that about Gone Girl. Did you ever read Gone Girl?
I've read other books by her, but I haven't read that one because I had seen the movie already, and so I didn't want to. I don't like reading the book after I see the movie.
Yeah.
But I have other ones.
So what I liked about reading Gone Girl is it reminded me of Quentin Tarantino films where they show you a pivotal action scene right at the beginning that throws you into the drama, and then they pedal back and they show you like leading up to that point, and then like the halfway point in the book is at that moment that you started with, and then they follow up after that. And I do love that formula. House in the Pines did a lot of back and forth. It wasn't quite that Tarantino formula. And there were a couple times where I was lost because I was like, wait, is this the past or is this the present? And I kind of had to like I had to get my like gain my bearings again. But
yeah, I had a little bit of that too. I will say that it was very unique, and it had you're not sure, is this paranormal? Is this not?
Yeah, I definitely thought there was paranormal components to it, especially when she goes to the diner and she interviews the waitress who gives her some information about that viral video. I was like, okay, it's definitely paranormal. And then the more you learn, the more you realize like it's not ghosts, but it's not ghosts.
Part of this podcast was Noelle was going to cook for me every week.
Right. Yeah. So now I have to send her the recipe.
Now she's in Mississippi.
And now you have to cook it yourself. You can look on our Instagram and it's posted there. What I made was Brenda, the main character's mother. It's her chili recipe, because when Maya goes home after not having gone away to college and kind of had this kind of stagnant relationship with her mother, who arguably is the best character, the most well-rounded, most fleshed out, most real character in this book, she has this chili recipe that is her way of comforting her daughter. And her daughter is obviously going through withdrawals, paranoid, obsessed with this whole thing that's happened in the past. She's confronting trauma that she's put off for 7 years. And the mother is like, knows at a certain point that she's like, okay, this is something I can't like hover over her and try to fix this for her. She has to fix it herself, but I know that I can make her favorite food. And I loved the mom.
Yeah. And I wonder, because I really did too, but I wonder if that's because we're moms. Like if a young adult reads this, I wonder if they might feel differently.
Yeah,
about
like,
that.
get out of my room, mom. And we're all like, she just wants to love.
She's trying to help you. Tell your mother. But yeah, so I hope the chili was great. I'm happy for you that
it was delicious. You'll have to tell me how yours turns out. No, what we should do is I'll take a picture of mine and you take a picture of yours, and then we'll compare them, and it'll be like a who wore it best. But
we already know the answer. I wonder what if we did like I do a drink and you do the food.
I love that.
And then it kind of hits both sides if people are like me and don't want to really cook. They just want to drink.
Yeah. And that's kind of the beauty of the brunch theme. You're having brunch and you're listening to this when you're doing some me time. You've got a mimosa or whatever beverage and you want a little recipe. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Also, back to the book. I want to talk about themes. there's a lot to unpack. And obviously the most obvious one is that of home. What's cool about this book is I love a good juxtaposition. And here we have home as a safe place, right? A refuge. And then we have home as an illusion, a nightmare, and a prison. And you've got a main character who has experiences in both of these homes, and it's sort of like, what is home? What is a home? Is a home just a house, or is your home your mother who makes you chili and comforts you while you're going through withdrawal, or is a home just a house that someone has convinced you is this place that you can go to?
But yeah, so with the home thing, she also in there lives with her current boyfriend, and she talks about how her other residences, like since college, were not really a home, and so she's trying to make this one a home. And so she goes shopping, and it reminded me of that when you move out on your own and you get to create your space, because my daughter is a senior and she's going to be moving out here in a few months into a dorm, and so I'm having to like restrain myself and not like try to decorate her dorm, like it's her dorm. And so we were joking the other day that I'm like, oh, our dorm, and it's like, no, this is her space, she gets to decorate it. We'll probably be paying for it, but but that's such like a fun time in life. And so the book kind of starts with that, you know, with this relationship that's serious, and they have an apartment, and she's like, where does she say she goes? Like TJ Maxx or Marshalls or somewhere like that.
Yeah, like Home Goods.
Every pay period she's getting things, and so it also starts with that aspect of she's trying to create a home. Right. And then it really gets into crazy stuff.
Trying to create a home, but then on the other level, on like a subconscious level, you're still being haunted by this home. Mm-hmm. It's both the thing that you want and the thing that you're running away from. And I mean, even your mother's home is the thing that you want and the thing that you're running away from, right? Because it's comfort, but it's also can mean if you stay there too long, you're stagnant, you're not progressing, you're not independent.
Right. You know? And she goes and she has spent some time with her mom, and her mom has changed her bedroom. And so that's the other aspect of home, because her mom, I don't think it's really a spoiler, but her mom turns her childhood bedroom, and she hasn't been home in years, and so she didn't really realize.
7, but she hasn't been back since she left 7 years ago for college. And then she got her boyfriend, and her and Dan lived together.
Right. And so her mom changed her bedroom into like an Airbnb room. She's going to try to rent it out to people. So all her childhood stuff is gone. Like her nightstand is still there, that I think, didn't she have like stickers on it that she could see where they used to
be?
On
the side,
Yeah. And so she talks about that, like being in this room, and it's her childhood room, and it still smells the same, but when she wakes up, everything is different, and it's like, is her room, but isn't her room anymore. Right. Yeah.
So, not to go on a tangent, but my husband and I were just talking about it's not really an allegory, but it's the myth of Theseus's ship. It's like a Greek myth or a Greek story about Theseus. He was a naval warrior, and he had this ship, and it was like a legendary ship because he was just unmatched in battle, and he had this big, beautiful ship. Well, after he died, it was like still this like relic of like, this is the great warrior Theseus's ship. But after a while, when like wood would rot and things would break, they started replacing the wood. They started replacing all of the fixtures that went bad. And after so long, there was not a single piece of Theseus's original ship there, but it was still called Theseus's ship. And so I want to say it was Plato who asked, like, is it still Theseus's ship if Theseus A is no longer commanding it, and B, every single part over time has been replaced? Is something the thing because of the spirit of the thing or the legacy of the thing, or is something the thing because it's literally the thing? So it's like the house that you grew up in is the house that you grew up in, but once you move out and a new family moves in and they've replaced everything, and maybe they changed the siding and they changed the paint and it's a whole different vibe, and you go back 10 years later, is that still your childhood house? Of course it's not. The memory that you have of that house is your childhood house, but that physical house now is no longer. And it's sort of that thing is why time is so weird for us, like on a philosophical level, because we can remember something as this thing and that lives in us, but then we might revisit it. Like, think about Disneyland. If you ever went to Disneyland or Disney World as a kid and then you go again as an adult and you're like, no, that's not how I remembered it, or something like that, because it's like the memory of the thing versus the literal thing over time as it changes, confronting it again. And I think that there's so much of that in this book.
Yeah. You always bring this stuff up and I'm like, well, I was reading it, never occurred to me. Didn't get it. Didn't see it, didn't connect the dots, and then you start talking about it and I'm like, okay, yeah.
Well, because we moved into this cabin, and this cabin on this exact property and foundation was my husband's grandmother's house, and we just demolished it, but we kept the foundation and we built this cabin. And so we were sitting here and I kind of brought up the whole Theseus's ship thing and was like, it is, but it isn't. It's the same land. But I mean, we also tore up the land. We leveled everything. Everything has changed, but like the same blueberry bushes that were there in the 70s are still here. Like, there's like these like little things that are still relics, but what we agreed upon is like, no, it's not the same anymore. It's ours now. It's like this whole other vibe. And all of the trauma, all the childhood trauma that my husband endured here, we were able to come to terms of like, it's yours now. Like it's like a conquering of that and overcoming. Anyways, so just to make it personal, why not? It's our podcast.
All right, should we get into with spoilers, like talking about it?
Yeah, let's talk about spoilers.
Or not talk about spoilers, but talk about it, including spoilers.
Let's just list them all right now.
This happens.
Books and Brunch with Amber and Noelle.